As you may recall, I failed to knock out either the Yanks or the Soviets last week, managing only 89,392 damage and 50 kills on the Soviets and 82,614 on the Yanks, so this week is going to be more of the same. As you can probably guess, after picking up a Tier 8 and Tier 9 tank, even at a 15% discount, I'm feeling a little bit skint, so I'm going to be doing a little bit more money tank, as I would call it. Tier 8 premiums will be featuring heavily this week. I need to get up the credits to continue my purchases, upgrade the vehicles that I've already picked up, and hopefully pick up the Jagdpanther 2 and the Object 416. But speaking of the new tanks, I will be grinding out the experience needed to unlock new modules on the T69 and especially the M46 Patton. And as I detailed last week, for a Tier 9, a tier already known for being rather painful for the stock grind, the M46 Patton is just the worst. Welcome to hell, indeed. Now, the problem with the Patton is that everything is so goddamn expensive. It's pretty much worse than every other Tier 9 medium tank, for one simple reason. In order to mount the gun that you had on the previous tank, you have to upgrade the tracks or bite the bullet and purchase enhanced suspension to get the top gun from the Tier 8 tank, which for a Tier 9 medium just doesn't cut it. Let's have a little bit of a closer look here. The gun that you're going to be stuck with if you do not get the tracks upgraded or purchase the enhanced suspension is the 90mm gun M3, which is inaccurate. It's decent aiming time, but the rate of fire is not amazing for a Tier 9, and the penetration is where it really, really falls down. 160mm on a Tier 9 vehicle is an absolute fucking joke. Even with the concept of a medium tank getting around the flanks and exposing weak spots, it's still not going to get through the majority of Tier 10 vehicles that you're going to be seeing on a regular basis. There's an intermediary gun, the M36 90mm, 12,400 experience that you are never going to spend on this. It's pointless. You just bite the bullet, buy the track upgrade, and get the Pershing's top gun. It's not great, but there's no point throwing away experience when you need 68,000 to get the one gun that's worth a damn. But it's not only that. Oh no, it gets a lot better. The Pershing's top gun is adequate at Tier 8, but not amazing. But the thing is, it doesn't get better on the Tier 9. We'll just flick it up into the corner here, with your delightful 7.89 second reload and your horrible 0.37 accuracy. It's good for a heavy tank, it's terrible for a medium. And so let's go take a look at our friends the Germans. Leopard Parent-Teacher Association. Stock gun, 10 rounds a minute, 212 penetration, 0.32 accuracy, exactly the same aim time. A gun that is better in every respect. Okay. How about the E50? With the long 88. Rate of fire is still better, penetration still a lot better, accuracy a lot better, Aim time is worse, but you can afford to sit around and wait because you're a goddamn E50. So, there's those ones. Let's look at the Chinese then. Sorry, the Japanese. My mistake. Type 61. Stock gun. Better rate of fire. Much better penetration. Slightly better accuracy. Better aim time. You may be noticing a trend developing. Even the British. Our good friend, the Centurion 7.1. The 20-pounder barrel. Either one. Better rate of fire. Much better penetration, better accuracy by a long shot, much better aim time. So, really, in the region of 240 alpha guns, the M46 pattern has been utterly outclassed in every conceivable way. Yeah, the video derped out here and can't aid some of my recording, so I've had to make do with a snapshot. Sorry about that. You need to get that 105mm gun ASAP. And at 68,000 experience, even worse, if you don't want to spend your way to victory with the track upgrade, it's going to basically be in the region of 90,000 experience just to get that gun. It's a godsend you don't have to also get the turret in order to unlock it, but it's just not going to perform at tier 9. It really is not. But then again, terrible gun at tier 9, and yet, having only played 6 games, it's still performing reasonably well. I'm averaging nearly 1700 damage a game, and that's including the ones that are complete write-offs from the word go. So, if you don't just apart from the ones that are completely suck out right from word go and achieve practically nothing, I'm getting close to 2000 damage average per game, which is fucking remarkable for a gun that dire. So, it's time to grind a lot, and possibly even cash in some of my, well, built-up stockpile of experience. Already got 22,000 free experience locked away, and nearly 10,000 experience already unlocked on the tank. It's doing reasonably well, and that's been only 6 games, so it's looking pretty good. So I guess I just have to keep plugging it away at it, don't I? The payoff, of course, is once I do finally unlock the 105mm gun, I'm going to be rolling around in a medium tank that has the 3rd or 4th highest DPM of the medium tanks at tier 9, and that really is their defining characteristic, so it should both help my mission in terms of damage and in terms of kills. I was expecting this painful grind. I have been watching Fosh U's videos on the pattern and its follow-up, the Fatten, and I've been prepared for the direness of the stock grind that I am sharing with you now. And so it's not really as painful as it could be. Now, I could be aiming for the same sort of thing with the Soviets, the combination of high damage per minute and the lots and lots and lots of shots available by picking up the Object 416, but I just really can't be bothered for it. I'm not going to be busting my hump to pick up the M63 gun with its 54,000 experience unlock anytime soon. So that's really a sideline project, and as a vehicle that runs with only 4 crew compared to the 5 of the Panther 2, I'm going to be cashing in my checks and picking up the discount JP2 long before this thing, just for the pure expedient of cheaper crew training for a larger crew. So yep, that's the general strategy for this week. Grind the tanks that need the unlocks to allow them to perform, above their weight. And between that, I'm going to be rolling money tanks until I'm bleeding credits. So let's see how I got on.
Welcome to Intermission.
I have to admit I'm developing a wee little bit of a man crush on the M46 pattern here. don't get me wrong, everything that I've said about the horrible stock grind is actually true, but despite all of that, it's not that bad. What I'm getting at here is even without the Top Gun unlocked, it ticks enough of the boxes to make it a capable vehicle. Yeah, it's just not a bad experience at all. The speed is enough to get you where you need to be, gives you the capability to react to the game as it unfolds. As you can see here, I'm moving fairly well enough even without the top engine, and when I pick that up, that's going to be another 100 horses under the hood. And yeah, the armour isn't anything to write home about. It's certainly not as robust as the T-54 or the E-50 especially, but with the gun depression on this thing and the good mobility characteristics, it allows you to play the peekaboo game a lot better. You can get yourself into positions where basically terrain is your armour, and it's really that combination of speed, mobility and gun depression that makes this such a flexible machine. I mean, I've got the Centurion 7.1 and it performs much the same role. It's got the gun depression and the mobility that you can dance around over ridgelines, but it lacks the speed to react to quite the same extent. If you're committed on one flank, you can't really redeploy to the same extent that you can with the Patton. So here I am carving up the stock gun on this ridgeline that I absolutely love playing on. It gives you a tremendous scope to influence the game, and it's a commanding position, but it's also a decent artillery shadow. As with most American vehicles, the guns are a little bit derpy, but it excels at short to mid-length engagements. This was the last game that I'd played with the stock gun, and most of them went pretty damn well. I mean, I've done over 2,000 damage in a couple of games, usually averaging about 18 to 1900 by the end of it. And the thing about the Patton is, in terms of WN8, the expected damage output is a pathetic 1400 damage. So when you've got the Top Gun unlocked, you only need to pull the trigger 4 times to get green stats out of it. And there's a lot to be said about strapping a gun that does about 2500 damage per minute to such a mobile platform. If it wasn't for that, the Patton would be in real danger of being a jack of all trades and ace of none, but it's that phenomenal damage output. So until you drop the 68k needed to upgrade the gun, this vehicle performs to an adequate level only, which is not to say unenjoyable, but you do start to feel the lack of penetration and the lack of punch. It's acceptable in a tier 9 game, but as soon as it gets into something heavily tier 10, the frustration will mount just that little bit. But then, when you get that Top Gun, oh boy, it's a game changer. You get that Top Gun with a gun rammer and that's over 2700 damage per minute. You give it vert stabs and the shots will go where they need to go, and because it's got a 410 meter view range on the top turret, you don't need to pick up the coated optics, so you've got space for ventilation to further increase your reload, further increase the accuracy. It turns into an absolute machine. So I spent the gold to get the gun unlock. It seems kind of counterintuitive to do that for the damage dealing ability to help get a free tank, but I don't really want to play the stock gun for too long, and it has turned into an absolute punishing damage dealer. This is my go-to tank for damage and kills now. Now this is where the downsides of the Patton start to show. At long range, it is not the best tank in the game. This is me firing with the 90mm gun from the Pershing. It's got a decent .37 accuracy, but unless you're fully ranged in, the shots aren't going to go where you place them, and then you bump up to the 105 with its .4 accuracy, you haven't got a shit show of hitting things at range. The Patton is definitely a close-range ambush tank. It doesn't want to have a long-range engagement. It wants to pop in and out of cover and smack heartily. Think of it as a knife fighter. Here's what I mean. That rather pedestrian game where I did 2600 damage netted me about 3,500 WN8. I wasn't playing like a pro, it wasn't a Radley Walters game, I came third on the list, still got 3,500 WN8 for a very average game. This tank will stain everything it touches a deep lustrous purple. Another week down and I've knocked out the damage totals for both the Soviets and the United States, but the kills are lagging a little bit behind. The Soviets have only got 80 out of 150, so that's another 70 kills I have to pick up. A little bit of a struggle. And the Yanks, a lot closer, but that's still 36 kills that I need to round out for them. I've definitely been helped along by my recently upgraded tier 9s, the M26 pattern is, sorry, M46 pattern is an absolute beast with this new gun. Nasty, nasty vehicle. I've been cranking out damage and kills galore. And then of course there's the IS-8, which is rapidly becoming my favourite Tier 9 Soviet. Sorry SDI, you've been replaced. It's the fact that it can just get where it needs to be. Like, this thing cranks 60 kilometers per hour downhill. It's an absolute speed demon. And all it needed was that turret upgrade. That turret changes the entire dynamic of this vehicle. They say it plays like a medium. It almost does. It's just, you drive in where you need to be, pop out of cover, lock on, blast away, eat a huge chunk of health, and then just bugger off before they can retaliate. And of course the equipment definitely helps. Vert stabs, gun lane drive, rammer, makes it much better at shots on the move, or shots immediately after the move. And I've been kitting out quite a few of my tanks with these while they were on half price, and still managed to have $500,000 left over, so I should be picking up the Jagdpanther 2 next week, and if I crank out the gold tanks especially, I might actually be able to pick up the 416 too. However, my prospects for getting the WZ-111 are diminishing rapidly. I need this next week to knock out the kills for the Yanks and the Soviets, which is proving more difficult than expected. I mean, the autoloader, the T-69, is sort of helping the Yanks a bit, but the Soviets lagging behind, and there's a lot of kill stealing going on out there. I think there's quite a few people feeling the pressure. But as far as me, I have not been committed to this task as much as I should be. Because I don't feel the pressure that I did last year, I'm not really feeling compelled to play as much as last year. And if I'm being frankly honest, I've been intent to spend more time actually doing the video series than the grind that the video series is about. Yeah. But there's no use grumbling and kicking myself about this. I'm enjoying myself, and there's really nothing for it but to get out there and get some good games cracking. Speaking of which, this week's highlight.
Let's go.
Here we have the mighty M103 on Karelia. It's a really good map for this vehicle. With the armor layout that it has, it feels a little bit vulnerable on urban maps compared to, say, the E75 or the SD1. But with all the uneven ground for this thing to poke over, this is just the right sort of map for it. And looking at the teams, this is a great lineup for this tank. Firstly, there's no artillery, so I've got freedom to maneuver and break cover without being immediately obliterated. And as the enemy doesn't really have much in the way of fast threats like a T-54 or an E-50, I can actually play the M103 more as a medium in this game, and do it rather convincingly. So the first order of business is to get up on the hill. It's a nice commanding viewpoint where I can affect either the centre of the map, anything that gets lit up on the north, or I can use it to shoot down on people trying to press along the 9 and 0 lines. There's a lot of similarities between the IS-8 and the M103 in that they are a much more mobile, speedier, heavy tank, playing almost like a hybrid between a medium and heavy. But what differentiates the M103 from the IS-8 is the fact that with the extra gun depression, it makes it a lot more versatile in certain situations, whereas the IS-8 specialises more in being a bit more frontal and having a slightly punchier gun. When I first got to the top of the hill, I was going to look to get a shot at the AMX 1390, but I really didn't need to. There's enough of the team up there to deal with it as it is, and as you can see, he's taken out long before I can get a gun to bear on him. So, a little late, I get myself into a position close to the rocks to get some cover and an eye down on the enemy flanking down the 0 line. This has probably cost me a couple of early shots. I could have started chipping away at the health of that 103 a lot sooner than I do. And with the sloping of the rock in front of me, I could have spent a little bit of time getting sure that I was in a position that covered up the weak underbelly of this tank and just poke over the hard points, but as you see, having to rush the shot instead, the enemy actually did manage to plug another shot back into my lower glacis, or possibly a weak point on my turret cheek. Now, I want to repeat the same setup, but on this little ridge in front of me, but there's an unfortunate 1390 sort of sticking in the way there. If a top-tier heavy wants to take the corner to tank its view, it's common courtesy to let him do it, instead of suffering return fire as the 1390 just did. Now, I've got a bit of a shooting gallery in front of me. The M103 and the Tiger 1 over there are both extremely soft targets for me to shoot at from up here. And with their respectively large hit point pools, that's going to be a very, very rewarding thing. And at the same time, there's an E75, an IS-6, and a Tier 7 IS tank further around the corner that can't really push out to deal with me without exposing themselves to flanking fire from the Tiger, T-34, and IS-6 perched down at J8. Now, I really should have used my large repair kit here to repair both my ammo rack and my tracks, but I was a little bit too complacent about the threat that I thought that the IS didn't exactly pose. But unfortunately, being in that position with my flank and drive wheel exposed to the IS, he plugged a shot straight through, and that's a lot of hit points that I've lost in a very short amount of time. I'm going to have to be a lot more cautious about how I present my armor from now on. Which seemingly isn't a problem when dealing with this enemy 103, but when I come up against the E75 after the 103 is dealt with, that's a nasty high-pen gun that I'm going to have to be very, very cautious of. The great tragedy of the M103 is not only does it carry on the top turret weak spot tradition of the American Navies, it really exacerbates it with a huge commander's cupola that is just paper thin. This seems to be the way of the M103. It's surprisingly soft and tends to bounce shots more by accident than by design. That's the M103 out of the equation, but because the Tiger II and T-34 are busy searching all over K8 to try and locate their testicles, it's up to me to push the tempo on this one. If I charge in on the E75 straight off and give the Tiger 1 my side, the 88 L71 of his will have me dead in 3 shots, which will take roughly 18 seconds to do. But his position is way too exposed to the IS-6 and T-37, and as you can see, he just did not have the armor to do that. I've had tremendous success in that position with my Yagi 100, but it's got a good armor profile on the upper half of the vehicle, and the slope there can cover up the lower glacis. Unfortunately, a good armor profile is not what the Tiger 1 is renowned for. Now this is a bad position. The foliage here makes it a little difficult to pick off the weak spots on the IS-6, and I'm being proximity spotted so that the tank destroyers at the back, as yet undetected, are free to pour fire into me with complete impunity. The team is winning, but my personal situation is looking pretty dire. I'm running dangerously low on hit points, my team are a pack of sackless wonders, and the E75 and IS-6 are lighting me up like a Christmas tree for all the tank destroyers at the back. So I'm looking for a lucky break here, and the first one is the tank destroyer GTFOing. The IS-6 bouncing gives me about 10 seconds of breathing space, which is always appreciated, and then the E75 gets bold, moves up, takes careful aim, and promptly shits the bed. This was a massive relief. The 128mm that the E75 packs, sure it's got a low DPM, but per shot it is a nasty piece of work. The writing is on the wall for the enemy. The North got absolutely hammered by our team, and they haven't made any progress in the South. It's 11-3, it's all locked up. But I want the damage. Don't they know there's a mission on? Don't they know they're famous on YouTube? They should be lining up in eager anticipation to feed me hit points. So the question is, how much more can I get out of this game? I don't really care about surviving the battle, but I need to live long enough to do more damage and get more kills. Unfortunately, I'm locked here against an IS-6 and an E75, who, digging in, are rather tough nuts to crack, unless the IS-6 sits still like this. But then again, RNGesus may giveth, but he may also taketh away. Having tithed 466 HP to the Great Random, I'm now running on the smell of an oily rag, and it's past due time for some of my allies to occupy the enemy's attention. It is a moment of deliverance from the Great Random as the E75 decides to go on a YOLO run of all things, bouncing yet another shell off my hood, and I've got a much better reload than an E75. I have this guy done and dusted. I have no idea why he rushed me. He left himself entirely too open. He doesn't have the rate of fire to finish off the 4 fairly healthy tanks still remaining on this side. And he's a goddamn E75. It's the tank that the saying, back against the wall, was invented for. The time for bold action was 5 minutes ago. What he needed to do there was just dig in and make our team bleed for every hit point that we take from him. I shouldn't complain because it worked out pretty well for me, but I love the E75 and I hate seeing people make a very poor go of it. Anyway, we appear to have run out of opponents, so it's back to the garage. So, all in all, nothing earth-shattering, but a very decent game nonetheless. A very respectable 7,500 WN8 from the 4,500 odd damage that I inflicted. Steel Wall, Spartan and High Caliber, and thanks to the crew bonus weekend, a massive 7,272 crew XP. That's good enough for first class mastery, so I guess that'll do. It appears that my tank was an absolute glutton, taking the lion's share of the damage in that match, although credit where credit's due, the T-34 did ably support me. I managed to bounce 11 shots, totaling 3,050 blocked damage, so that suggests to me that the E-75 was perhaps using the 105mm gun rather than the 128, so an enjoyable and rewarding game in the M103. That's really the sort of gameplay that I come to enjoy with that vehicle. It's a welcome development to the T-32, and it makes me look forward to the T-110E5 that much more. Now, we're coming to the close of this series, one more episode to go, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it so far. As I mentioned earlier, I'm having a lot more fun making the series of videos here than I am enjoying the grind that the series is based on. Don't get me wrong, I love World of Tanks, but I am also enjoying this aspect of the hobby, this little sideline here. And just as the point of playing World of Tanks is to get better at World of Tanks, as much as I like making these videos for myself and a handful of mates, I want to get better at doing it. It's a pure vanity project that I'm doing for my own amusement, so I'll only be throwing as much money at it as I can, feel comfortable doing. But I am more than willing to take constructive feedback, advice on how to improve the quality of what I'm doing, especially advice on the technical aspects so that I don't end up making videos that look like mud. As happy as I am to bodge around with the controls and sort things out that way, as I did to sort out my annoying sound issues, I'm always keen to get some advice from more experienced hands, or even just an indication of what people might like to see. It's early days here and I'm sort of speaking into a black hole of an audience. I guess what I'm saying is, don't be shy. It's early days, it's a fledgling channel, and you've got a pretty good chance to really influence the way I develop. So if you want to fling some advice my way, or just talk shop, feel free to contact me in the comments, through email, or on my Facebook page, all detailed in the description below. And again, thanks for watching.